Hello, everyone. Welcome as we discuss Magomed Ankalaev. I want to welcome you here on this festive evening as we celebrate the life and legacy of Magomed Ankalaev. We must be honest with ourselves. Magomed Ankalaev, clearly one of the best fighters at, if not the best fighter at 205 pounds in UFC's light heavyweight division. Now, has he been his worst enemy at times? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Especially you look at his most recent performance against Johnny Walker. Magomed Ankalaev came out hot. He was against the fence. Initially fended off a knee that could have put the lights out of any light heavyweight fighter in the division. Johnny Walker playing possum at times, and he let off that knee. Magomed Ankalaev used some effective strategies on the feet to stay evasive. Then look what happened. Magomed Ankalaev took Johnny Walker down against the cage and saw red, ended up landing an illegal knee, and here we are. But you go back in time. You see Magomed Ankalaev and who he's fought and how he's conducted himself inside the octagon. You listen to Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz, clearly after the fight against Magomed Ankalaev, said, give him the belt. He knew Ankalaev was the champion at that time, and months have passed. I'm not sure who Magomed Ankalaev's management is, but they haven't necessarily done him many favors. This podcast is not sponsored by Eric Nitzik and also Extreme Couture, although they're a solid gym. I'm a fan of Magomed Ankalaev, but I also realize that you have other fighters in the division who are yearning for that title. You have Jamal Hill, who's coming off of a win over Glover Teixeira. Now, I backed Jamal Hill in that matchup with my hard-earned money. He came out the other side victorious. But just imagine for 1 second what Magomed Ankalaev would have done to Glover Teixeira. Let that soak in for 1 second. Now, I must present to you also, you look back at Jamal Hill's record, and granted, he has a finish win over Thiago Santos. Jamal Hill, fantastic fighter. You watch his fight against Glover Teixeira, brought everything he had, and most referees would have stopped the fight much earlier. Glover Teixeira took so much damage in that fight. But then I also think back to what Magomed Ankalaev could have accomplished against Glover Teixeira. Now, you look at Thiago Santos versus Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill was down on the scorecards 3 rounds into the fight, and you had or headed into the 4th round, you had Thiago Santos up on the scorecards, right? 2-1. Then you also look at Yuri Prochazka and his win over Glover Teixeira and his subsequent loss to Alex Pereira. And now think about what could potentially be in stake for us right now as Alex Pereira holds the light heavyweight title. And you have Jamal Hill on the sidelines recovering from an Achilles tear. And Alex Pereira was brutally knocked out by Israel Adesanya, comes up to 205 pounds, gets handled early in the fight against Jan Blachowicz and turns the tide, avoids the submission attempts by Jan Blachowicz, comes out the other side victorious, earns a title shot. And what happens to Magomed Ankalaev? He's sitting on the sidelines. He has to face he has to face Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker is, when you fight Johnny Walker, it's a no-win situation. It's not like Johnny Walker's higher in the rankings. He's well below Magomed Ankalaev, but it's a very dangerous fight. It's a it's a high risk, low reward fight. And we saw that play out. Now, what's going to happen here? You have Magomed Ankalaev set to rematch Johnny Walker, which is a fight that doesn't necessarily have to happen. I'll be honest. And I hope you're honest with yourselves also. So Magomed Ankalaev, 18-1-1 overall record. This is a fighter who has the potential to be undefeated inside the octagon. Folks talk about John Jones as being the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I got to be honest. Magomed Ankalaev, I believe that he is the greatest light heavyweight of all time, and he hasn't worn the belt. This is the most dramatic statement of all, is that the young man has not worn the belt. And I say young man because he's younger than Jamal Hill. He's younger than Yuri Prochazka. He's younger than Alex Pereira. And he has one loss on his record, and that is due to tapping to Paul Craig. And Magomed Ankalaev was winning that fight so handily, late into the third round, ready to walk away victorious. But hey, that's why they fight, right? There are no certainties in this game. So you have Ankalaev taking a loss to Paul Craig in Magomed Ankalaev's UFC debut, nonetheless. And you look up and down Ankalaev's record, the way he brutalized Anthony Smith, the Jan Blachowicz fight. I was impressed with the way he came back after having his leg virtually chopped off with low kicks. Jan Blachowicz spamming those leg kicks, those tree trunk legs, and Ankalaev took the damage and was within one or two strikes of being stopped. Yet, look what happened. Magomed Ankalaev implemented a plan B in that spot. And his plan B was to take the fight to the mat, something that we haven't necessarily seen that often from Ankalaev, but we do know he possesses it. And remember, you listen to Sean Strickland saying that, every time he has to spar against Magomed Ankalaev, he knows what's up. And you watch the fight against Thiago Santos. Yes, Magomed Ankalaev was dropped by Thiago Santos. But then go back to those scorecards. You see Ankalaev, he was able to go the full 5 rounds. He won 49-46 on 2 scorecards and walked away victorious. He fought a safe fight. Now, we know this is a man who has spent basically a year. I believe there were 3 separate matchups versus Ion Cutelaba. It's funny that now I believe they're fighting out of the same camp, out of Extreme Couture. But they fought 3 times. And the first time you saw Ion Cutelaba playing possum against the fence. You saw the ref intervene. It was a premature stoppage, but you also have to realize that Ion Cutelaba, you can't play those games inside the octagon. Then when they did rematch and they stepped inside of the octagon one more time, Magomed Ankalaev treated Ion Cutelaba accordingly. So you see there was a situation there where months transpired, multiple matchups against Ion Cutelaba. It did not need to happen, but it took place. I appreciate you, Mr. Chicken. Thank you for proclaiming greatness there on the Ankalaev side. Now let's take a look. So we spoke about Magomed Ankalaev in great detail. We look at Jamal Hill's record. Jimmy Crute knockout, that has not aged well. The loss to Paul Craig. Wow. What can you say about that fight? Who had a more dramatic finish? Was it the tap of Magomed Ankalaev to Paul Craig's triangle, And then you look at Jamal Hill's record, multiple common opponents here with Magomed Ankalaev, Klidson Abreu. And then you look up and down Jamal Hill's record, Darko Stosic, Johnny Walker. Granted, yes, Johnny Walker was disposed of handily, quickly by Jamal Hill. Just imagine what would have transpired against the fence with Magomed Ankalaev raining down strikes early and often against Johnny Walker. Yuri Prochazka. The young man has 4 UFC fights. Granted, he fought often on Ryzen. Ozdemir, Dominic Reyes, Glover Teixeira, Alex Pereira. Prochazka leaves himself wide open. The grappling game isn't necessarily there. Granted, he has a submission victory over Glover Teixeira, but that was partially due to the exhaustion. You look at Alex Pereira, 7 UFC fights. We know the kickboxing legacy that he's left behind. Came in against Michailidis, was able to land the flying knee, had a unanimous decision victory over Bruno Silva, then knocked out Sean Strickland, then had a knockout victory over Israel Adesanya, then gets knocked out by Israel Adesanya, moves up to 205 pounds. This is, I believe, Pereira's 36 years of age now. Not the most well-rounded fighter. Has a win now over Yuri Prochazka, and he wears the belt. But I proclaim to you now that Magomed Ankalaev is, in my eyes, clearly the best 205-pound fighter in UFC's light heavyweight division. I think he could take on John Jones right now and walk away victorious at 205 pounds. Granted, we understand that John Jones is recovering from a serious injury, but give him time to recover. Make this fight. Now, Magomed Ankalaev, the future's bright, but I must say this. He's about to be locked inside of the 8-sided octagon with Johnny Walker one more time. I see the eyeballs, Pinnacle. I see them. He's about to get locked inside of an 8-sided octagon with Johnny Walker one more time. And that's a dangerous thing because Johnny Walker does bring some skills to the table that are potentially dangerous. The explosiveness, the unpredictability. It's a lot to prepare for. How can you prepare for the unexpected? But Magomed Ankalaev is going to do that. I believe January, possibly the 13th is when they run this back. Ankalaev, this is a high-risk, low-reward fight. He's not doing himself any favors by stepping back in there against Johnny Walker, but we know it's a dangerous fight. I believe that Ankalaev is going to walk out of the other side victorious. Thank you, Pinnacle, for your knowledge that you're sharing. Ryan, I appreciate you stepping in here as well. Thank you for offering your insight. If there's anybody else who wants to jump in and stake their claim here to the light heavyweight belt, go for it. Because right now, I'm making the case for Magomed Ankalaev. And realistically, you look up and down this division. You have the champion, Alex Pereira. You have Yuri Prochazka. You have the Uncrowned Champion, Magomed Ankalaev, ranked number 3. And then look up and down this. Look up and down the rankings here, my brothers. Jan Blachowicz, Alexander Rakic, who I believe blew out his knee. We haven't seen him since. Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov suffered a loss to Magomed Ankalaev. Then we have Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith, Volkan Ozdemir. All of these, it's a graveyard of fighters who have suffered. They've taken the L, as the youngsters say. who is a threat here? Ryan Spann, Khalil Roundtree, Dominic Reyes, Alonzo Menafield, Dustin Jacoby. Let's be honest with ourselves. For once, let's be honest with ourselves. Andrew, very excited. I'm excited to have you here. This is a hot topic. A lot of people aren't comfortable with this. They aren't comfortable in their own skin knowing that the greatest fighter on planet Earth at 205 pounds is Magomed Ankalaev. And I believe that it's pretty clear. Scott, thank you. Oh my goodness gracious. I did not completely read your comment that you believe he'll be a champion for PFL and not necessarily the UFC. Well, Scott, you may be onto something there. But I will say this, that if the UFC books Magomed Ankalaev versus Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira versus Alexander Rakic, I believe that Magomed Ankalaev walks out of the other side of that fight victorious. And I believe that Ankalaev is the uncrowned champion here. Now, you look at what he brings to the table, Magomed Ankalaev. He's got a great gas tank. He has intelligent decisions at times, but it's almost as if he sees red sometimes and he throws the game plan out the window. The first time he went 5 rounds with Thiago Santos, we saw a much more measured approach. Somebody who appeared to be, there appeared to be some trepidation on the side of Magomed Ankalaev as far as engaging on the feet. And he didn't necessarily try to take the fight to the mat early and often against Thiago Santos. That was a clear path, but he avoided that. He also stood and traded with Iwan Kudalaba. Fascinating decision-making there. Now, you saw against Johnny Walker, he took the fight to Walker right off the bat and wanted to fight aggressive and found his way to the mat. That fight was within a few seconds of being finished. I believe that Magomed Ankalaev was walking out of that fight victorious. But hey, the other side of the fight is that we are at the mercy of what these fighters do inside of the octagon. The decisions that they make necessarily aren't the greatest, and Ankalaev has proven that in the past. So, if I'm being brutally honest here, I do believe that Ankalaev, he needs to listen to his coaching staff, and that the sky is the limit for this youngster. I believe he's 31 years of age, my brothers. So if he's fighting for another 5 or 6 more years, he does have a killer instinct. He can fight safe. His striking defense is what I've been most impressed with. He hasn't been brutally knocked out. He's someone who, you look at fighters in the top of the upper echelon of the division, Magomed Ankalaev hasn't taken much damage. And he's still under the tutelage at a solid gym. So the arrow's pointed up. Big things are on the horizon. I believe that if you have the 2024 light heavyweight champion props available to you, you may want to take a look at that. And post to me a matchup other than Rakic. Who's out here to threaten Magomed Ankalaev? I don't necessarily believe it's Alex Pereira. I don't believe it's Yuri Prochazka, and I do not believe it's Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill, we're how many 20 minutes into this breakdown? I haven't mentioned that Jamal Hill is recovering from a torn Achilles tendon. So it's not like he's been in the gym sparring and getting ready for a fight. He's going to have to rehab, and we know how fast Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Apparently, he may make a return before the 2023 NFL season's done. We'll see. Let's see. If he closes at minus 370 time this round, how much do you put on the money line, and do you play an Ankalaev prop? I did not touch the money line against Johnny Walker the first time. I suspect we're going to see a much more closely lined bout. I think that odds makers and fans in general, casuals, people talk the public, people talk sharps, the sharps versus the dulls. You've heard that saying before. I believe that we're going to see a more closely lined bout this time around. I think that Magomed Ankalaev, he got too aggressive. He saw red and wanted to take Johnny Walker out of there. So I think that we'll get a better line here. I didn't play Magomed Ankalaev the first time, mainly because this is a high-risk, low-reward fight. What does Magomed Ankalaev gain from disposing of Johnny Walker? We've seen other fighters take Johnny Walker out, and he's not as highly ranked as Magomed Ankalaev. So this goes back to the management on the part of Magomed Ankalaev. There's a lot to be learned here, But the take-home point of the day is that Magomed Ankalaev is the best fighter at light heavyweight in the UFC, and he is the Uncrowned Champion. So I am grateful to be here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and subscribing to the channel and liking the video. And I appreciate everybody leaving comments here. Looking forward to January when Magomed Ankalaev steps back into the octagon and stakes his claim. Go get what's yours, my friends. One fight at a time.